such a big risk coming here, and you envision a certain kind of life for your kids, and then when they choose a different life, like the stakes are higher. It's they're kind of like, I ruined my life to come here, and now you're sort of doing something very different from what I had wanted you to do. So I completely understand. In fact, in writing the movie and writing my parents' dialogue was kind of the first time I really saw things from their perspective. Like, it really was eye-opening writing those scenes, and I realized, like, oh, there's no right or wrong here. Everybody just has their point of view.
This episode of My Hollywood Story was recorded live at Soho House, West Hollywood. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you think. Hello and welcome to My Hollywood Story. I'm Stacey Wilson Hunt. My guest today is the actor, comedian, and Oscar-nominated screenwriter Kumail Nanjiani, whose Golden Globe-nominated stand-up special, Night Thoughts, premieres on Hulu December 19th. I first met Kumail about 10 years ago during the run of HBO's comedy Silicon Valley, in which he played software designer Dinesh. But it wasn't until our conversation in front of a live audience at Soho House that I fully grasped the scope of his unlikely journey from Karachi, Pakistan to Hollywood's A-list. Listen in as Kumail reveals how early stand-up gigs led to a Saturday Night Live guest role and 12 episodes on Portlandia. He also shares how it felt to experience backlash for physically transforming himself for Marvel's Eternals. Kumail also tells me what he learned about his parents while co-writing the Academy Award-nominated screenplay for The Big Sick, alongside his wife, Emily V. Gordon. Please welcome Kumail Nanjiani.
Hi.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We are so honored.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I want to say congratulations on all your success, including your very funny upcoming Hulu stand-up special, Night Thoughts, which I watched the other day, made me laugh a lot. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for watching it.
And it premieres December 19th. And we
Yes.
will discuss more about Night Thoughts in a moment, but we're going to go way back, Kumail, to the beginning of your story, which begins in Karachi, Pakistan.
Yes.
The very beginning. What was your life like growing up in Karachi?
I loved it. It was great. I watched a lot of movies and played a lot of video games. I wasn't like a guy running around outside very much. The food was great. I think that's like a thing that, my wife grew up in the South, and no shade to North Carolina, but I'm like, you're so lucky that your food wasn't good. Because it's really a challenge. Like, the food is so good that it's hard to like be healthy. It's also not like particularly healthy food. Anyway,
Now, when you talk about watching movies, were these American films, and what were you consuming as a kid, entertainment-wise?
a lot of American movies, a lot of Hollywood movies, but also Bollywood movies, Indian movies. I would go to the video store and get 7 VHSs and watch a movie every single day. For many years of my life, I watched a movie every single day. And I would just get movies, I was like, what's new? I didn't know really anything about them because these were all bootlegs, so you didn't even know who was in the movies. Until you start watching, you really so I was going in blind. It was like being at a film festival for like the first 15 years of my life, where you're just like, well, let's see what happens when I hit play.
So wait, the boxes of these tapes, were they just blank?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know when you used to buy a VHS just at like CVS and it just said Maxell on it? That's what they all were. It's just like a handwritten thing.
Okay, so what movie surprised you the most when you put it in your VCR?
I remember, well, this was later, but I remember watching Bottle Rocket and being like, this movie's incredible. And I've seen none of these people in any other movie. And so I feel like I was in on the ground floor on Wes Anderson. Someone let him know.
Now, were you watching these dubbed? Were you watching them in English?
I was watching them in English. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I learned English in school too, but I learned like colloquial English from watching movies. And so I've been like, I feel like, I'm genuinely bilingual. Like, I dream in both languages. It's context dependent.
And what was your family like? Were they professionals who were doctors? Did they teach? What was their vocation?
My dad's a doctor. My mom was like a homemaker. And yeah, but my dad really, really loved movies and loved a lot of like Hollywood movies too. So we had like a little TV room that was tiny. We had posters of movies up that he'd put up. And on the weekends, we'd watch movies with him. So it was a very much a movie forward family. Like I watched more movies than anybody I knew. And if my dad didn't have a job, he would have been doing it too.
So you really got your love of cinema from him, it sounds like.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I watched yeah. He'd show me his favorite movies. He liked westerns and stuff. So for a long time,
Dads love their westerns.
dads
don't they?
love westerns. Yeah, I did not love westerns because I was like, stop shoving these down my throat. And now I've learned to go back and I love westerns now. But he'd be like, watch this, and I'm like, for a kid, some of these are quite boring.
There's a lot of quiet moments with desert and tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
etc.
A lot of like establishing of mood where I'm like, get to it, you
Get to
know?
it. And what was your first exposure to stand-up comedy? Who was the first comedian that you saw perform on stage and you're like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before?
It wasn't really until I came to the US. I was probably like 19 or something where I really watched stand up. I watched, and then I got obsessed with it and I watched everything I could. But it wasn't until then. So it was like I knew it existed, but I didn't understand that like there's so much freedom to it. You really, it's just you with the microphone. There's nobody like giving you notes or green lighting you or anything. You just go up there and you do it. So that became very exciting to me. In the beginning, the comedians I really liked were like Jerry Seinfeld. I really liked Zach Galifianakis. His stand-up was like big for me. There's a guy named Jake Johansson who's really funny, who I was a big fan of. Chris Rock, of course, Dave Chappelle. So those are the people. But like, so this would have been like late 90s is when I started watching a lot of stand-up. And then I watched everything. I watched everything in the 80s.
Seems like you're a good student. When you're interested in something, you really go for it.
I get obsessed. Yeah, my wife is a little annoyed by it. I get obsessed with things and I just like watch everything. And I've been lucky, at least so far, that all my obsessions have been like good things, you know?
Lucrative too.
Yeah, that's lined up. But yeah, I really do. I get obsessed with stuff, and lucky movies are the things I've been obsessed
And
with.
I was the same, so we share that. I
Yeah.
couldn't get enough as
A lot
a
of
kid.
movies growing up.
Lots of movies. Couldn't stop talking about movies.
Yeah.
And here we are, Kumail. We made it.
Yeah, I talk about movies all the time. Sometimes I'll work on sets with actors who are like, I don't really watch movies. I'm like, why are you here then? Is this like your like fallback job?
I've encountered that myself, even interviewing people where I'll make a reference and they'll say, what is that? And I have to protect them and not embarrass them.
I
in
don't
that
want to
moment.
be, judgmental or be a gatekeeper or whatever, but like you should love what you're doing, especially when it's something like this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I want to know what inspired your decision to move to the U.S. to attend college in Grinnell, Iowa, of all places.
Well, I didn't really know that there were, in movies you don't show Iowa. And so I thought all of America was either New York or LA. So I didn't really know what I was getting into. I'd never visited Iowa. I didn't know.
How did you choose that school?
I just applied to a bunch of I wanted to do liberal arts because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so I applied to a bunch of liberal arts schools and I just went to the highest ranked one I got into. So it was kind of a arbitrary decision ultimately.
And what was your biggest cultural adjustment in Iowa?
Karachi's like New York. It's like very busy. So
I was stunned to learn it's the 12th largest city in the world.
yeah, it's like I think it's like 25 million people.
I had no idea it
now.
was that huge. So you really came from a giant city to a very small environment.
Yeah, I went.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. So that was the biggest adjustment. It was so sparse. There aren't like buildings really. It's very, very quiet. And so that was, but then I grew to really love that. But as soon as I was done, I was like, I'm going to Chicago. That's a real city.
You served your time. And what did you end
did.
up majoring in college?
Computer science and philosophy.
Okay. And what did you envision yourself doing after college? Did you have a sense or were you kind of still trying to find your footing?
So by senior year, I knew two things. I knew I wasn't good at computer science. And that philosophy wasn't going to get me a job. And so I sort of was like, I'm going to have to, I'd really fallen in love with stand-up. So My senior year, I did it a couple times on campus at like a little like coffee shop on campus for my friends. And then I was like, I love this too much to not like really try and make a go of it, but I needed to have a job. So I was like, I'll move to Chicago because I knew a lot of comedy people came from Chicago. You know, obviously, like it's even futile to start naming them because almost everyone's from
Second
there.
city, of course. Yeah.
Second city, yeah. So I was like, I'll go to Chicago, and it was the closest big city to Iowa. I'll try and pursue stand-up, but I needed a day job, so I had like an office job. I had like a computer science job. But I knew then, I was like, I want to try and see if stand-up is something that can like lead me somewhere. I wasn't trying to think of it as a career. I was just thinking of it as like something I enjoyed that I wanted to get good at. So that's what it was for the first few years, was just like I had my office job, and then I would go out at night and do stand-up. And I really did not sleep very much for like 6 straight years.
From being out at night so late.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I had to be at my job at 9 a.m. and I had to take 2 buses and a train to get there. So I had to leave by 8. And for me, the victory was, I was like, if I'm in bed by 3, that's pretty good. And most nights I was not in bed by 3. So I would go do stand-up. I would just be out till like 3 or 4 a.m. So I really was like, I slept like 3 hours a night probably for years at a time. But I was just, the job itself was so...
what was this job specifically?
It's so hard to describe. Half of it was making websites. So I would make websites. I guess that part's not hard to describe.
That's pretty simple. We are familiar with this part of the job. Yes.
Yeah. The other part was also fairly simple. So this was a school that it was a charter school. And so they had this organization had a division that would do research on education, and then they had schools where they would like put that research into practice. And so so their whole thing was like technology and education. So all these kids they were all given a laptop. They were all given a MacBook, or it was called an iBook at the time. And so suddenly, and this was on the south side of Chicago, so a lot of these kids were from like low-income households. And the laptop was suddenly the most expensive thing that anybody owned. And my job, and these kids had never been at computers, and now suddenly they had their own laptop. And my job was to make sure that the laptops were functioning. It's an impossible job. Because these kids were like...
And like, are they calling you saying, Kumail, my laptop's not working?
Yeah, they would. I would go, like, so 3 days a week, I would split my time. So half the days I was making websites for this organization, and the other half... So I'd make websites so that people could access their papers, and the other half I would be in the school... like it was a middle school, and kids would come up to me with like laptop problems. like one I opened and it was like dripping with apple juice. I was like, what do you think? I was like, do you like apple juice? Yeah, I love apple juice. Yeah, there was one I remember where it was like, if the problem had happened that wasn't like their fault, we would fix it for free. But if it was something that we said was negligence, we charge them $100. And this one girl came in and gave me the computer, and I opened it, and like water is pouring out. And she's like, I don't know what happened. And I was like, it was raining yesterday. Did you use it in the rain? She's like, yeah. I was like, well, that's going to be $100. She's like, but I didn't make it rain. God made it rain. And I was like, honey, there is no God. It's going to be $100.
So that philosophy degree actually was very helpful.
Yeah,
in that
it
exchange.
really was. It really was helpful. Yeah.
I do understand now why you said it is a complicated job to describe. So that was not.
It was
wrong
also very complicated to do because
Right.
I would have like stacks of computers that I didn't know how to fix them. And I had to send them to the Apple store, and it would take like weeks to come back. And I remember when I quit to go to New York to be like, I'm going to try and like make it. They were like, what are we going to do without you? I was like, you're going to be so much better off without me. Like, you have no idea how much I've been holding you back. Like, because my life was so stressful. Like, if I just did the work, my life would be so much easier. because I was dodging doing anything. I had two bosses that never spoke to each other. So I'd tell one of them, like, I've got this big project with the other one. And with the other one, I'd be like, I got a big project with the first one. And so they never spoke. And so I kind of like did nothing, but I lived in fear of them finding out, which is very stressful.
There's a TV show in here. So let's keep this in mind for a pilot. Very funny. So you talk about moving to New York. By this time, you had met Emily, your wife. And we'll talk more about her as we talk about The Big Sick.
Great.
But the two of you moved to New York. And was your goal at that point to not have a day job, to commit to performing at all costs?
Yeah. So by then, because I stayed in Chicago for 6 years, and I had to have a work visa tied to my work. So that's why the stakes were so high with that job. I could not get fired. So you get I got a 3-year visa, then I got another 3-year visa, and that's all you can get. But I'd met Emily by that point, and so it was like we decided to get married right after the events of The Big Sick. That actually was part of the movie at one point, where we would end with a wedding, and Judd Apatow, the producer, was like, "Nobody's gonna believe that. We gotta take that out." So we took that out.
Even though it did happen.
It really happened. Our real life was too Hollywood ending for Hollywood.
That's very sweet, actually.
It was very sweet. I mean, but it was also practical. It was like, do you like me? Okay, well then, you want me to go back to Pakistan? No? All right, let's go stand in line at a courthouse.
And how did your family feel about all these decisions that you were making?
They knew, I think all these decisions for them were weird, and they didn't understand, but I was always a really good kid. I never got in trouble. I studied all the time. I studied constantly. When I wasn't watching movies or playing video games, I was studying. I got good grades. So I was always I was sort of like the golden child of the family. So I was making these decisions that to them felt like irresponsible, but they trusted that ultimately I was doing the right thing. So, but to your question, we moved to New York, and the plan was Emily's going to get a job, and I'm going to try and do stand-up. And I did. And the fact that I had 6 years of experience under my belt meant I kind of hit the ground running in New York. So New York was immediately very good for me. I started getting stuff in New York very quickly. But I didn't have a job. So at night, I would kind of play video games all night, and then Emily would go to the job, and at a certain point, she was like, this feels really unfair. I have this hard job supporting both of us. So we made a rule back in those days, in New York days, which would have been 2010, that we have to go to bed at the same time no matter what. And at that time, it was a rule that was benefiting her. And now it's a rule that benefits me, because, if you're shooting, you got to be up at 5 a.m., 5:30. So we're in bed at 8. Wow. Often. And so now
you had good training for your busy schedule now.
Yes. Yeah. Going to bed early with her. But yeah, so she supported us. But
she had to sort of intervene and say this model is not really working for her.
Yeah, I guess you could call it an intervention. I played video games so much that, you on headsets, you talk to people. I'd start hearing other languages. When I heard Chinese was when I was like, oh, it's time for them, reasonable adults in China to be playing. I should go to bed.
So I want to talk about your appearance on Saturday Night Live in 2008.
Was that when it was?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was right after I'd moved to New York.
Right.
Yeah.
And I sensed it was probably around this time. It was an episode hosted by James Franco. And you actually had a speaking role. You weren't just an extra in a scene. And you played, quote, an Indian reporter. That's really how you're credited on IMDb. And what do you remember about this scene? It was a sketch that took place at the New York Times. It was kind of the silly concept with these newspaper reporters. But how did it feel to be in that moment, in that room, having a speaking role alongside Will Forte? It was that great gangbusters cast from that era.
Yeah, Kristen Wiig, Jason Sudeikis, all these people, Daryl Hammond. It was wild because they needed a brown guy, and they didn't have one. And I think one of the writers had seen me do stand-up, so I just got a call.
I was wondering how you got brought in for it.
Yeah, it was just random. They called and they're like, hey, do you want to do Saturday Night Live? I was like, what do you mean, do I want to do Saturday Night Live? Because they don't have speaking roles for people who aren't on the cast.
That's what struck me about it.
It's
that was
weird,
so strange. If you watch, there are a lot of extras every week, but they don't have speaking parts. They're kind of in the background.
No.
Right.
So I remember, actually, I know I'm friends with Will Forte now, but I was like, you're not going to remember this, but I was there. I had like 3 lines in dress rehearsal that got cut down to 2 lines. I'll tell you what happened there. I was like, and you were so nice to me, because you know he was so nice, and he doesn't remember it, of course. But I was like, it really meant a lot. Him and Kristen Wiig were both like went out of their way to be extra nice to me, and they really didn't have to. They didn't know me. I was truly like, you know, you're like an under 5 extra, so you're like hanging out with the extras all day. So they were just really nice to me for no reason. And I had 3 lines, and one of them is a response to Sudeikis, and in the dress rehearsal, Sudeikis messed up his line, which messed up my response. And so that line got cut, because SNL is pretty ruthless. If a line doesn't do well, it gets cut. So that got cut down to 2. And I remember when we were about to shoot the real sketch, I hadn't met Sudeikis at that point. Now I know him. He looked and he like apologized to me. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Didn't have to do that. I mean, it's terrifying. You know, you're kind of there all day. You're there for rehearsal, and I'm with all the other like people who are background actors. And I was the only one who had speaking lines, and they were like, how did you get an under 5? You know, I was like, I don't know. But it's funny because as I was working with them, I figured out that there was one lady specifically who was very good at getting into frame. Like, she just knew exactly where to position herself to be in frame. And I see her now all the time. She's still really good at it. I'm like, oh, there's my buddy over there.
Got to get into frame.
You got to get into
Yeah,
frame.
gotta learn.
Yeah, she's really good at it.
So you would return to 30 Rock 9 years later to host Saturday Night Live on October 14th, 2017. How did it feel for you to be the host all those years later, knowing that you had just been, quote, Indian reporter during that first visit?
I mean, I was pretty nervous going into it because it's live, and I don't think I'd done any shows live. Like, shows are barely ever live. That's what's so exciting about SNL. You know, it's like
It's very scary if you haven't done it.
It's very scary. So I was just very scared going into it. I was like, okay, I was like, there's so much I can't control. So I was like, I want to have 2 sketches that I love, and I want to write my monologue myself. So I went in with that goal, because I was like, everyone's like, you just give yourself over to the machine, which is what I did. I was like, 2 sketches, I'll be like, you know what, I really like these 2 sketches. I want to like work with the writers on them. It's a really overwhelming week. I was like, I'll write my stand-up, and then otherwise I'll just be along for the ride. And it really feels like that. They really take care of you. They really protect you. And, you know, I thought I'd be so nervous going into the actual recording, but you're so exhausted that you're really not nervous. Like Thursday night, Friday night, you're
I
like...
spent a week there sort of shadowing Lauren for a story. I
so
was
much.
exhausted just having sat in the rooms.
Yeah.
The pace and the rigor of that show is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and so Thursday night, because Thursday night and Friday night, you're shooting the pre-tapes. So you're really not in very much sleep. And I remember doing the dress rehearsal, which is like 2 hours instead of an hour and a half, so it has a few sketches extra. When I did it, I was like, oh my God, I did it. I hosted SNL. I was like, no, you haven't even started yet. That was just the dress rehearsal, but it feels exactly like the real thing. So every time you see someone on SNL doing it, they've done it already a half hour before that. So it's a really like kind of a rigorous week.
And then a bunch of stuff gets cut for the actual
and
broadcast.
rewritten, yeah. So I had a great time doing it. I hope I get to do it again, because I know how I would approach it a little differently.
I have a feeling you'll be back.
Thank you.
So around this time, I started to see you pop up in movies, sort of like bit parts and comedies, and one was Life as We Know It, kind of comedies.
Yes, that was my
your
my
first,
first
right?
movie.
Okay. Starring Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel, directed by Greg Berlanti.
Greg
Wonderful.
Berlanti.
And I was reading some things that you had said about your experiences as an actor going to auditions, and you said, quote, there was a lot of stuff that was pretty boneheaded or tone deaf, auditioning for parts for cab drivers and 7-Eleven employees. You would do the audition and then tell you to play up the accent, which you don't really have an accent. So how did you manage those situations where wanting to get work, but also wanting to separate yourself from parts that wouldn't serve you and your goals?
I mean, I want to be honest. It's not like people were like clamoring to get me in, you know, like it wasn't like I would go on these cab driver auditions. It wasn't like I was getting the part and then saying no. They're the ones saying no. And maybe I'm justifying it being like, well, I didn't want to play a cab driver anyway. The I guess I started auditioning when I moved to New York, which was 2007. So 2007 to 2010, I was clearly getting a lot of parts that were written for Aziz that Aziz had said no to, because a lot of them were named Aziz. And so I just sort of decided I was never going to play up the accent. And sometimes people would say, could you do it? And I would say no. They would get really awkward and apologize. And I'm like, it's fine. But it's also not my job to make you feel better in this moment. Like, I don't feel awkward about drawing this line, and I'm do it very professionally. And I'm moving on, and you should move on too. Like, I'm not doing this to shame you. I really am not. I just don't want to do that. I don't know how to, because I had done it once for one thing, and it made me feel bad because it was for comedy. It was to be funny. I think playing up an accent for me is totally fine. I did it in Welcome to Chippendales, but I had an acting coach because it's from a different. This guy was from India. I'm from Pakistan, and the accent is very similar, but there are some differences. So I did it for that because there's like a dramatic reason for it. So I'm not saying I won't do like a thicker Pakistani accent. I just don't want to do it because people think it's funny. And so I'd done it once, and it made me feel really bad. And so that's when I was like, I just don't want to feel like that anymore. And so I just say it very professionally, I'm not going to do that. But this was, before I'd done anything.
But it was a good precedent, at least for you to establish as a routine for yourself, meeting with casting directors, and sort of just say, like, assert yourself and say, I'm appreciative for the opportunity, but this isn't for me, essentially.
Yeah, well, it's hard because it's hard to know sometimes, like in comedies, like, is the accent because you think the accent is funny, or does it serve the character in some way? And for me, like, if it serves the character, I'll do it, but not just because, I don't want to do accent comedy.
Totally makes sense. And I'd like to talk about a show that means a lot to me and many of my friends back home, which is Portlandia.
Yeah.
And you did 12 episodes between 2011 and 2018. And of course, created by Fred Armisen, Carrie Brownstein, and Jonathan Kreisel. And I was rewatching a number of my favorite episodes over the weekend. And really, this show feels like something that will never be made again. This very artisanal, very handcrafted, very Portland piece of work that I really, truly maybe would exist on YouTube now. But it's so special to think about the fact that you had so much creative freedom that IFC just let you go do this weird thing, trusted you, and you delivered just dozens and dozens of amazing moments.
I had such a great time doing that show. So that happened. I don't know what happened first, if it was SNL or on the Colbert Report. I had like a recurring bit that I would do on that show. And Alison Silverman was, I think, the showrunner for Colbert Report at the time. And then she was doing this show, Portlandia. And I just ran into her in Brooklyn at a subway stop. And she's like, hey, I directed the Colbert Report when you did it. And I was like, great. And she's like, I've got something else for you. I was like, okay, whatever. And then a couple days later, because people say that all the time and it never comes through. A couple days later, I got an email that was like, you've been offered the show Portlandia with Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein. I was a fan of theirs. I mean, Carrie's music and Fred's comedy. I was a huge fan. They're like, but they can't fly you out or anything. But I was doing a festival in Seattle right around that same time. So I was like, all right, I'll just drive over. I drove over, I did it. And it was this crazy thing. I met Kreisel there. I'm still friends with Kat Kreisel. We're trying to put something together now, to work together again. And they were like, I was like, send me the script. They're like, there's no script. I was like, what do you mean there's no script? They're like, there's just no script. But we'll send you something. And they never sent me anything. All they told me was, it's a guy who works at a cell phone store. They're coming in. They need to buy a cell phone. And you're just have too many plans to run through. It's going to just like frustrate them.
And this was the episode The Mayor is Missing.
The Mayor is Missing. Kyle MacLachlan, who I'm watching The Lowdown right now. And he's
great.
That's a great show.
So good.
People watch The Lowdown. It's phenomenal.
Starring Ethan Hawke on FX.
Ethan Hawke, yeah, he's incredible in it.
We are not getting paid by FX to promote this series at all.
I mean, I'll take money, in retrospect, if it helps.
So we're fretting in it, and I've spoken to them, and I went to the set a number of times, but I didn't realize that it was this improv heavy.
This one at least was.
It was.
Some of them aren't. So what I did was I looked up like all the cell phone plans. I looked up, you can find scripts online for what they have to do, because it's these dialogue trees. Like, you know, when you call a cell phone company to be like, I want to change my plan, and they have like all these things. It's so hard to. So I looked those up, and I kind of had those ready to go. When we did that whole sketch, 2 takes. The first take was like 45-minute long take. When they yelled cut, John was like, that's the longest take we've ever done. Part of it was because I just kept laughing. I ruined a lot of takes. So we did that, and I remember we started at 7, and I remember going back to my hotel room by like 9:30. It was like we shot like a 5-minute scene in like an hour, which is so fast. And I went into it, and I was like, Emily was still in bed. I was like, Emily, I think that was something. Like, I think we did something. Like, I think it's going to be really good. And then I ran into an editor from it a few months later. He was like, hey, that thing is really good. I didn't know what to expect, but really everything that I got after that comes from Portlandia. Like, that first sketch that I did on Portlandia, it was like such a cool show. People watched it. I got so many jobs from that.
Really? Just from that?
From that one
Wow.
sketch. And then I did it, every year.
So I have
for
to
years.
ask on behalf of Portland, what is your favorite thing about having worked there? And what was the weirdest Portland moment you had? Because there's so many.
I mean, the restaurants were so good. I really remember loving, like, I remember having like salt and straw ice cream there.
Before they came to California.
Yeah. And, Fred and John and Carrie were like, you gotta have it. And I had like pear and blue cheese ice cream. Blue cheese and ice cream, that's pretty fucking Portland.
That is among the more Portland anecdotes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And where did you stay when you were working there? I'm curious.
Something
Downtown?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same hotel every time. I don't remember it now.
Probably affordable. It was IFC, right?
Yes. Yes, probably affordable.
Probably affordable.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk about your first stand-up special on Comedy Central, which was called Beta Male,
Yes.
which is a very funny title. What was your writing process like for this special? How was it different from your previous stand-ups? Were you culling favorite moments from your acts over the years, or did you wholesale sit down and wanted to create something brand new?
No, it was the former. At that point I think I recorded it in 2012 maybe, so I've been doing stand-up about 10 years. So it was really like a greatest hits of the first 10 years. And luckily it ended up having sort of a theme, which is why the beta male thing works. But it really was, that's what happens a lot with stand-ups. Their first special is just like all the best stuff they have, and that's why the sophomore slump is a real thing.
And you want to introduce yourself to the world for people who hadn't seen you perform, essentially.
You mean in the new one?
No, in the first one, it's sort of if people weren't familiar with your work, you want it to be your hallmark, trademark comedy.
Yeah, you want it to be great, but I didn't really think of it as like, and now I'm introducing myself to the world or what I want to say with it. It was nothing like that. It was very different from this new hour because it really was like greatest hits of the first 10 years of doing stand-up. And it ended up being that a lot of the material in it was the stuff that was written more recently, because the weird thing that happens with stand-up is jokes lose potency. I don't know why, but if you have a joke, you have like, you could do it for a couple of years.
It has like a shelf life, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know why. Not because it's about current events or anything. That's obvious why it doesn't work. But it's just like even a story. If you're telling a story about your childhood, you could do it for a couple of years, then it stops being funny. I don't know what it is.
Well, maybe the audience can sense that you've told the story thousands of times.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
You become like disengaged from it. It just becomes words. And that's the thing with audiences. They're really sharp. They pick up on everything. So
They're
like
really tough, too.
they can be really tough, especially to stand up, and it's stand-ups that they don't know. Like, stand-up is such a hard thing because it's a weird thing because I think it's the only, like, one of the only disciplines that it gets easier the more you do it, and the audiences get easier. So when you first start off, when you have no experience, you're in a bar with people getting drunk and they just turned off the Cubs game, and these people hate you, Or like you're at a nice restaurant and suddenly like you have to do stand-up and people don't know there was going to be stand-up. And then as you become more well-known, the audiences get easier because they now know you. Like now, every audience I get in front of is an easy audience because they're there to see me. But with doing it back then, you have to like win over every single audience. If it's a 10-minute set, the first 5 minutes, you're convincing them you're funny. Then they're laughing for the next 5 minutes.
It's like going on a date with someone. And that first date is all about like me, please. I'm trying to please you, essentially.
Yeah.
Until you cross the threshold into
And then
a
it's like,
trust.
all right, now you get to see the real me.
Right.
Yeah. So it was all like the stuff that I'd written that I was like, all right, this is just the funniest stuff. It has to go in. I have to find a way to make it work. So it wasn't really like a statement or anything, or even like, I don't even look at it as like a complete thing. I was like, here's a collection of jokes, you know? That's what it was more like.
And this was at a time Comedy Central was really on fire. This was Amy Schumer, Key and Peele. There was like this spate of programming during that time that was just really
there were so many great shows. Yeah.
Did you feel like your stock in Hollywood changed, or at least the notoriety that people had about, oh, he can do this, but he's also an actor? Was there sort of this confluence of awareness?
I didn't really feel, honestly, like my stand-up special did very much. They aired it once. And then there was like a rerun they were going to do, and then they didn't do it, and I like tweeted about it. And I don't know if I was with Lindsay already, but somebody called me to be like, hey man, delete that right now.
This is Lindsay, your publicist.
Must have been my manager. So then I deleted it. They aired it once on like Saturday at midnight.
Well, this is so different now. We can access stand-up at any time on the platforms.
Right.
They're there
You had to
forever.
watch it when it was on.
Right.
But I do get the sense that a lot of people, like I still run into people who know it. So I think that the comedy nerd people did find it. But outside that very comedy nerd world, I don't think it was like a big thing outside it. But people did know me as a stand-up. And that was, what helped me was it came out right as Silicon Valley was coming out. So I think Silicon Valley came out in 2012.
Yes. Silicon Valley was 2014.
2014.
Yes.
Really?
So this was like a year before Silicon Valley.
We must have done the pilot in 2012 and then the series the first season in 2013 and came out 2014. So this was, I guess, right before that.
Right.
Yeah, it really felt like I was quite frustrated. I felt like it didn't really but then now I run into people all the time who've watched it. So like I said, the comedy.
So the purists found it, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
When was Life as We Know It?
I think that was, I'd have to check my previous page of notes, Kumail. It's in 2010 was Life as We Know It.
2010.
Yes. Okay. I'm telling you the beats of your career here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot to keep track of. It's a lot to keep track of. So on the subject of Silicon Valley, one of my favorite shows, which aired on HBO between 2014 and 2019, have to give credit to, of course, Mike Judge, John Altschuler, am I saying his name correctly, and Dave Krinsky.
Yeah, and then later Alec Berg was a
yes,
showrunner.
Alec Berg, of course. And for those who haven't seen it, and I can't imagine who hasn't, it's inspired by Mike's experiences as a Silicon Valley engineer in the 80s, and it's centered on a computer programmer named Richard and his friends as they attempt to strike it rich. And you, of course, played Dinesh. So in the pilot, Dinesh says that he's never shaken a woman's hand until he was 18. He says that in the pilot. And you have said that you yourself had that experience.
Yeah, that's right.
Did the writers lean into your biographical story to create this character? And how much so?
I mean, we'd have a meeting every summer where they'd be like, all right, just tell us stuff from your life. So a lot of stuff in there is taken from my life. There's like a story later where I have a cousin who is like cooler than me and like bilks me, and that's from my life. Although my real life cool cousin is like a great guy, but it's funnier if he's not, you know? So that's from my life. The other thing, there's a big storyline in it where we get a little bit of success and I buy a gold chain. That's from my life. I bought a silver chain.
It's very brave of you to share that today, by the way.
Oh my God, I should never have told them. I bought a silver chain and I wore it and I got made fun of mercilessly.
Is this like Mr. T big?
No.
Okay.
It's a thin gold.
So it was an elegant chain.
It was thin. I don't know if it was elegant. It was thin. It was what I could afford. It was like quite cheap. I remember I would like clean it with a toothbrush. This is so embarrassing. But a little gold chain, and people at school made fun of me for it. And I remember being like, I can't take it off right now because the heat's on me and they'll know that it's them making fun of me that made me take it off. So I was like, I got to write this out until they forget, until like the eye of Sauron moves away from me. So I had to wear it for a week going like, oh, I got to put on this fucking thing. So all that is in the show.
And they were probably very grateful to have those options.
Yeah, they talked to all of us, and
Yeah.
we would give them storylines, and So that was a very collaborative fun experience. I mean, the writers are incredible. I don't take any credit for that. I mean, Alec Berg is one of the I mean,
one of the
Mike
greats.
Judge, of course, is like.
And I can't hear Alec's name without thinking of Seinfeld. Alec Berg. It's just never going to go
John
away.
Houseman name.
Exactly. So among the show's funniest gags were, of course, the barbs that Dinesh traded with Martin Starr's character Guilfoyle. And Guilfoyle once joked that Dinesh, quote, might be the first Pakistani killed by a drone inside the U.S. And he also made references to suicide bombers. And I'm wondering, did you ever feel like any of that went too far? Because some of those jokes, in the moment, I laughed and I thought, oof.
No, because I think it's coming from his character, right? And his character is not even racist. He just knows how much it's going to bug
He's
me.
a Satanist, right?
He is a Satanist. Yeah, he's sort of like he's like a total nihilist. So he's just doing it because he knows it's going to get under my skin. I really loved that dynamic, the Dinesh Guilfoyle dynamic. And that was a total accident. That happened because I'd auditioned for the show. I'd auditioned for the Ehrlich part and the Big Head part. And the audition went great. And they called me and they're like, you're not right for any of the parts here that we've written in the pilot, but we like you, so we're going to add you to the pilot. And people say that never happens. And then they sent me the pilot and there was a new character in it. And so the reason the Dinesh Guilfoyle thing happens is they just inserted me into scenes, and there's like a scene of us that they just added in, and it was really funny, us making fun of each other. And so that's how that happened. It was a total accident. They just needed to put my character in the show.
And you and Martin had great chemistry.
And it just ended up being all 6 seasons that we got to do that show. That was the pairing. And it was really fun because I was just talking to Martin 2 days ago. We're still really
He's such
close.
a nice guy.
Yeah,
he's not
great.
a nihilist in real life at all.
No, he's not. He's very warm. He just got married. Yeah,
Aww.
he's great. So he's one of my very best friends. That show was such a lovely, wonderful.
I think we miss it. It was very, very special.
Why?
show.
Is the tech industry in the news? Have they done anything recently?
Well, now that you bring that up, Kumail, I did revisit a Twitter post that you made November of 2017 where you said tech has the capacity to destroy us, calling out the entire business of Silicon Valley. And I think you were quite prescient in that sentiment. So thank you for being ahead of the curve.
I said that?
You did. Tech has the capacity to destroy us. You posted that on Twitter.
I did?
You did?
Well, I mean, I still stand by it.
I mean,
sadly.
I think people say no notes on that, right?
Yeah, I remember, I've talked about this before, where we would go on, they would, in between seasons, so Silicon Valley, they loved our show. Even though
they felt very seen by your show.
Yes, even though our show was very, was very sharply sharp towards them. But they loved the show because I would meet CEOs and stuff, and they'd be like, your show's so accurate. These people are all crazy. And I'm like, yeah, you're crazy too. The show's actually about you, but they're all so arrogant that they don't know. They're
it's
like,
about other people.
It's all about all the other people. It's like, no, it's about you. I remember they would go to all these, we had a lot of access. So the writers would get to go and meet with the CEOs and all these
It's
people.
kind of like what the Homeland team had with the government. They would sort of source information and then build it into the season of the following show.
Stakes are different, although not anymore. So I remember we would go to these companies and they'd let us see their tech that they were working on, and we would be we would ask them about the obvious ethical implications, and they didn't even have a pat answer. They were just shocked to be asked about it. And that's probably when I wrote that. I was I'd done a big tour where we went to all the big corporations, and then I was like, oh, this is really scary. They're working on stuff and they don't realize how dangerous it is. And since then, now a lot of that stuff has come to fruition, and it really has made the world a scarier place.
Well, thank you for at least saying it out loud.
Yeah, I guess my tweet didn't do anything. Nobody listened to me.
It's just, at least it makes us feel less alone in these fears that we all share at this point. So I'd like to talk about a show that I have a feeling meant a lot to you, which is the X-Files reboot. In 2016 on Fox. There were 2 seasons, created, of course, by Chris Carter. And you appeared in an episode as an animal control officer who believes he is a were-monster.
I was supposed to come back the next season too, and I couldn't do it, and I'm so upset because it's also such a good episode. The one I couldn't do.
Well, this episode was fantastic.
This episode's amazing.
And I know that the show meant a lot to you. Your character in The Big Sick, his ringtone is the X-Files theme.
Yes.
And you also hosted a podcast called the X-Files Files.
Yes.
So this was not just some guy showing up to set. This was you going to church, essentially.
Yeah, it was really scary. Like, it's my favorite show of all time. And, I wanted to... I was doing the X-Files files before we did The Big Sick. So I remember... there was a guy who would like tweet at me on like random things about the show. And at a certain point I was like, wait, this guy seems to know a lot. And so I looked, his name was Glenn Morgan. And it had a picture. He had a picture of this like woman from an episode called Home, which is one of my favorite episodes.
The best.
Amazing episode. So I just DM'd him. I was like, are you that Glenn Morgan? He's like, yeah. And so then I interviewed him. I got to interview Chris Carter. I interviewed his brother, Darren Morgan, who's, like, to me, one of the best writers on the show. He only wrote, like, 5 episodes. They're all incredible. And when The Big Sick was happening, I was like, it would be so funny to have the theme from the show, but it's, like, really expensive to clear. So I just called Glenn, and I was like, can you clear it? He's like, I'm on it. And he called Mark Snow directly, who has since passed, who did the music for it. And he's like, yeah, he gave us permission and was like, but they own that recording, so let me do another recording for you. So he recorded it again for us. So the one in the show, one in the movie is a different recording of the same theme as the show. But he did it for us, and it was completely free. They didn't charge us a dime. So that meant a lot to me. And then when Darren asked me to do that episode, I got really freaked out because he's my favorite writer, and that episode is absolutely phenomenal.
And what would young Kumail have thought about projecting into the future and imagining?
There's no way to really. I mean, that was such a crazy experience because the whole time I was like, it's just a job. You can't. And then when I sat in the car where they came to pick me up, they gave me a folder for like, they give you a folder of like, here are the restaurants and your call sheets and all that. And it had the I Want to Believe poster on front. And I fully freaked out. And I called Emily and be like, hey, you got to talk me down. And I remember I was in the makeup trailer and I met David Duchovny and I met Gillian Anderson. And they were very nice, very nice. Then I remember my first scene I shot was with them. And I remember standing there at night and it's the two of them. And I was like, oh, I'm talking to Mulder and Scully right now. And that was very tough. I kind of wish I'd been able to honestly have more fun doing it because I was just too nervous, too terrified.
Well, you did a good job.
I feel like I did a fine job. I could have done a better job. I just was too scared.
Well, there's no such thing as a show ending now. Reboots can
bring
last
it back.
forever.
Bring more X-Files back.
Chris Carter's, he's still here, so you're putting it out into the universe. So I'd like to now talk about The Big Sick in 2017. A wonderful, wonderful film, if people haven't seen it, written by you and your wife, Emily V. Gordon, and directed by the fantastic Michael Showalter. And you had worked with Michael on Michael and Michael Have Issues.
Yeah, when I moved to New York, which would have been like 2009 or so.
Right. Michael is so fantastic. I love his tone and style. Starring Zoe Kazan, Holly Hunter, Ray Romano, and you. And for people who don't know what it's about, it's a very deeply personal and very funny story about how you and Emily first met and were immediately thrust into a terrifying ordeal when she became very ill and was placed into a medically induced coma. Ultimately, she was diagnosed with adult-onset Still's disease, a rare immune disorder that can have life-threatening complications. And first of all, I want to know, how is Emily doing?
She's great.
Good. I see her on Instagram. She looks fantastic. But
yeah, she's great. She's, this is a condition she's going to have forever. But now they have a new monthly treatment that is fairly recent. By that, I mean the last 6 or 7 years. And it's been it's changed both our lives.
So great. And I know COVID was tough for both of you. And I remember
it was tougher for me because I fully had a full 1.5 year long freak out. Yeah. She was like, you need to relax. But it was really, really intense.
But I appreciated your messaging and telling people to get vaccines and be safe and really bringing her message to the forefront of people like me are counting on you. I thought that was really special.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the scary thing. I'm crazy in that I believe that vaccines work. I know that's a controversial statement.
I think you're not alone. There's still a large contingent that do.
Yeah, good. But the thing is, a lot of these vaccines are like 95, 96% effective, and those extra 4%, you just count on herd immunity, right? So like for stuff like hepatitis and all this. And Emily, her condition makes her more susceptible to everything. And so as vaccine rates go down, that becomes scarier for us for the thing. Anyway, I got distracted.
No, I think it's worth mentioning because it is a big part of the movie. And of course, I can't forget to mention you and Emily earned an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay, which is very special. Yes, let's applaud. Yeah. I love this movie so much. The script is so funny and so economically told. It's just a really perfect script. And my favorite scene is when Kumail, you, the version of you in the movie, asks his parents, who are pressuring him to marry Pakistani women. He says, "Why did you bring me here if you didn't want me to have an American life?"
Right.
And in that same moment, he reveals that he no longer prays and hasn't in years. And we see him pretending to pray at his parents' house, but he's really on his phone. He rolls out his mat, but he's really just on his phone, which is funny. And I want to know, what was your family's reaction when they saw the film for the first time?
Well, I sort of prepped them for it. I mean, you know, it's obviously complicated for them. They're incredibly proud of me, and they do love the movie. They saw it at the New York premiere, so they saw that it gets a good reaction, you know. I think it was obviously complicated for them, but to their credit, they were very proud of me, and they really loved the movie. Like, my dad still wears one of the Big Sick promotional T-shirts that we had. Yeah, I sort of prepped them for it, but it's tricky, you know.
We want our parents to be proud of us, but we also acknowledge that they have had to come to terms with decisions that we've made that maybe weren't the vision that they had for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And especially for immigrants, that's really tricky because you're sort of like, it's such a big risk coming here, and you envision a certain kind of life for your kids, and then when they choose a different life, like, the stakes are higher, you know. It's they're kind of like, I ruined my life to come here, and now you're sort of doing something very different from what I had wanted you to do. So I completely understand. In fact, in writing the movie and writing my parents' dialogue was kind of the first time I really saw things from their perspective. Like, it really was eye-opening writing those scenes, and I realized, like, oh, there's no right or wrong here. Everybody just has their point of view. It was
beautiful work.
Thank you.
And I'd like to now talk about Eternals in 2021, directed and co-written by Oscar-winning director Chloe Zhao, and of course based on the Marvel comic by Jack Kirby. And you play Kingo, a superhero who has spent thousands of years secretly living his life as a famous Bollywood movie star, because of course. And of this role, you said, "I didn't want to be the first brown superhero to also be the first nerdy brown superhero." So you physically transformed yourself for this role. Why was that important to you?
I mean, exactly that. You know, if the first, like, Asian person is getting to be a superhero in Hollywood, I wanted him to be someone who could look like he could stand next to Captain America and Thor. You know, that was important to me. And then Shang-Chi ended up coming out before us, but they actually shot it after Eternals. And so it was just that. Also, my wife is like, you just use it as an excuse to get in shape. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of did that too.
And get paid to get in shape.
Yeah, Chloe's new movie's coming out. I haven't seen it yet.
It's
I'm very
great.
excited to see it.
It's gorgeous. Quite different from Eternals.
Is it a lot? Is it crying?
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, I've heard
it's gorgeous.
I
Hamnet.
can't wait to see it.
And again, we're not being paid by Focus Features to plug this movie. It's just an excellent movie.
Yeah.
So in Night Thoughts, which we will discuss in a moment, you say to the audience when you walk on stage that you're the first person in civilization to get mocked for getting in shape. And you told the audience, don't be weird about the muscles. They're just decorative.
Yeah.
So there was quite a reaction to your getting very muscly and in shape and fit. What struck you as odd about that? Because to me, it felt like a very strange mixed reaction to something that we've seen actors do for decades.
Yeah, I think there was a lot going on in the world. I think, you know, this was during quarantine. So the weird backlash thing happened January 2021. And so I think there was just a lot of frustration in the world, and people didn't know where to put it. And so I was in their sights for a couple weeks.
Because they had nowhere else to put their frustrations.
They don't. I mean, you know, it was at that point. It's weird now. It's like a new year and nothing has changed. The vaccines were still a couple months away. So I think that's what it was. I think it was people were generally just frustrated with everything. And, you know, it's a horrible thing to be on the receiving end of. It was like a really...
But what were the criticisms that people had? Or what was...
nothing really. Just like... I think part of it, and I do understand this, is like I was always a nerdy guy. I was always a nerdy comedian. My audience, at least with stand-up, was like nerdy people, and I think that there was a sense of betrayal that I changed the way I look. And so I think that was part of it. I don't really know. I mean, there's really no benefit for me to figure out why it happened. I just know I didn't do anything wrong. Whatever backlash there was is really their concern. It's not really mine. Obviously, it was at the time. It was very. It was traumatic, and it was very intense to have that. And then there's no distraction because we're stuck at home. We can't leave the house. So
maybe people were not feeling fit themselves at home.
Maybe.
So this idea that there's this guy in Hollywood who's
I think it's more to do with them than it kind of has nothing to do with me.
It has nothing to do with you.
It really doesn't have anything to do with me. So I think there was all that, but it was so, and I haven't really addressed it very much, the backlash. And so in the stand-up special, I was like, oh, this is my opportunity, because that's the power of stand-up, right? Like, you could speak directly to an audience and you can really talk about how you feel, which makes it can be very powerful. In a movie, you got to use symbolism, allegory. If a movie's directly telling you something, that's a bad movie. But in stand-up, you directly tell people. So I was like, oh, this is my opportunity to like address all this stuff.
But also make it funny.
And make it funny. Yeah, I wanted it to be funny. So I talk about quarantine stuff also, but I also talk about the reaction that people had to me getting buff.
I think people, hopefully now they can look at this and realize how absurd that was.
Yeah, but again, people's reaction, I can't really control it. I just was like, this is the stuff I want to say about it. However people react to it is out of my control. And obviously I say that. Obviously the way people react to stuff, there's no way to really ignore it or not let it affect you. I mean, but that's something that I'm used to. You make something, you put it out, people like it or they don't like it. It's just sort of the nature of what I do. And it's like and I really can't complain because I'm genuinely getting to live my dreams. Like, I get to do this. It's really exciting. I've had great opportunities, and sometimes people like something I've made and sometimes they don't. And, you try and have a healthy relationship with the reaction to things.
It's very smart. Detachment when
you
needed.
try, but it's really hard because you really do pour yourself into everything. If I'm doing a movie where I'm just in it for a week doing a minor part, I'm still as engaged than if I'm doing something like, for 6 months where I'm the lead. Right. To me, it's the same level of engagement.
It's like you watching the movies every day growing up. You are very committed.
I'm very committed. I'm obsessed. Yeah. Right. So I'm putting all of myself into whatever I do. But then the thing is, once the job is done, the trick is to then try and disengage from it so that you're not so blindsided by people's reaction.
And that takes practice, for sure.
It does take practice. Yeah, and I'm not there yet, but I know at least what the goal is.
Of course. And I do want to mention one of my favorite performances of yours, which was in Welcome to Chippendales, which you mentioned earlier. This was a limited series on Hulu in 2022, created by Robert Siegel, and you earned an Emmy nomination for your work in the show. Yes, let's applaud. More accolades.
Thank you.
And I was struck by the notion that I actually did not really know this story. The story is insane, and it's about, for those who don't know, an Indian immigrant named Steve Banerjee who created the Chippendales brand, the largest and first male strip brand, and he died by suicide in '94. It's a terribly sad story.
It's a terribly sad story, and then he did later put a hit out on his partner and got away with it, and then he got caught when he tried to do it again. He tried to do it again, and then, at the end, he
just an insane story, but what
he killed himself.
Great television. Really great.
Yeah, that was really exciting to get to do. Yeah.
So you talked earlier about, in this role, you did use an accent. You had accent training because he was from India. And this story, in a lot of ways, is the American dream gone very awry.
Yeah.
Sort of immigrant hopes and dreams and really the worst case scenario. And there's a really great scene where Steve's putting the sign up on the club.
Yeah.
And the club is going to be called Destiny, but he wants to call it Destiny 2 because, quote, that implies it's a sequel which projects an air of success onto the place. People are attracted to things they perceive as successful.
Yeah.
That made me think of so many individuals in our society today. I won't name names, but this is a very pervasive American sensibility.
It is.
How did this idea of that sign in the sequel, how did that inform your approach to playing this guy? Because he's really well-intentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, he starts off well-intentioned, but the Destiny 2 thing is real. He wanted to call us Club Destiny 2 because people would be like,
I mean,
oh,
it seems too wonderful to not be real.
yeah, it's so successful that he had to make a second one. I mean, you know, his whole thing was about, I mean, the reason I was excited about doing this, one, I don't really get asked to play like bad, complicated characters like that, you know? So that was one reason. But I also thought it was an interesting commentary on the American dream and sort of the lie of it, you know? Like that's what I grew up with. Like the streets are paved with gold and you come here and it's not really true. Like success is not available to everyone and it's more available to a certain class of people than it is to other people. So that was really exciting to me to explore. And for Steve, you know, it's a guy who's so uncomfortable with who he is. He wants to be someone else, you know. And so that's what, for him, projection is much more important than the reality. And so he wants to project success to him is more, other people thinking he's successful is more important to him than being successful. So that was really fun to explore, someone who really is at the mercy of what everyone else thinks about him, you know. He has no real sense of self. To me, that was very exciting. And it's the contrast with him. I got to work with Murray Bartlett on that, who plays his business partner, who's very different. He's like very flamboyant. The real guy was bisexual. And so it's someone who's really in touch with himself versus someone who's really cut off from himself. I thought that juxtaposition was going to be very exciting to explore.
And did that role sort of pique your interest in wanting to do more work like that?
Yeah, I want to play more bad guys. You know, it's hard. Like, sometimes they don't cast like brown people as bad guys because they're like, what message are we sending? And to me, that's just as limiting as anything else, you know? So yeah, I'd love to play more characters like that are like, you know, do bad things.
And layered too.
And layered, yeah. I mean, I think he's a very, very layered guy. And I listened to some interviews with him. I watched some of his stuff. And what really got me was there's a picture of him. He was this like fat Indian guy in like an ill-fitting suit with glasses. And it was a picture of him with all his dancers. And it's all these like Adonises shirtless, like. And he's there, looks so awkward. And that picture, I was like, that is the show. That's why I want to do it. It's a guy who wants to be king of a world that does not accept him. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. Agree. And now we come to Night Thoughts, which premieres December 19th on Hulu. And this was filmed in Chicago.
Yeah.
How did it feel to be back in your old stomping grounds?
Really emotional, actually. I did not expect it to be such an emotional experience. I wanted to do it because that's where Emily and I met. That's where I started performing. I say this in the special, but I opened for Zach Galifianakis there back in the day, you know. And this was the next time I got to like go do that venue. I remember doing that venue and being like, someday I'll headline here. And then years later to come back and do my special here was really special. It was really ended up being very emotional because Chicago has like so much for us, you know, like it's where we met, but it's also where Emily got sick. And so it just is like it's one of our, like, one of your homes, you know, not that we have a home there or anything, but just when you go back certain cities, you feel like, I feel that way about
like
Portland.
Like the smells and the restaurants.
Like I know this place.
Right,
yeah, and this place knows me. That's how it feels going back to Chicago. And it was really magical to be able to do it back there. It's also just a great comedy city.
It's a great comedy city. How do you think you've changed as a writer and a comedian since those early days? I've
changed as a person, and so that has followed in me changing as a writer and as a comedian. Like, you know, when you're first starting stand-up, you just want to be funny on stage. And the writing process kind of becomes backwards because you start off being like, you think of something funny and then you write a joke about it. And now it's like, I want to talk about this. How do I make this funny?
So sort of like reverse engineering in a way.
It's for me at least, it's been the opposite process. So like you talk about me talking about the backlash about getting, you know, getting in shape or whatever. That was me being like, I need to write about this. I want to write about it. And then it came very quickly. That's like a 15-minute chunk that I kind of wrote in one sitting. And then, of course, I sharpened it and moved it around. And I was like, there's like complicated stuff in here that needs more explanation. Have to have the jokes in it to make sure that there's jokes at regular intervals so it doesn't sound like a TED Talk. So yeah, so that's how it's happened, and it's really the goal has become to when I'm on stage to really be myself and be authentically myself. The first few years, I was so terrified to get on stage. Bless you, that you're hiding behind a wall, you're playing somebody else, and now the goal was like to be truly vulnerable on stage and truly myself on stage was the goal. I want to be in a place where I can get emotional if it happens, you know. So that's my goal now when I do stand-up, is just to be like truly, truly, authentically myself. That doesn't mean I'm talking about things that are important or world-changing or anything. I like be talking about goofy stuff, but really feel like myself on stage. I want to feel like myself on stage.
Well, you definitely come across in the special as yourself. Very,
thank you. I was very happy with how it went. I really felt very present because, you know, like we were saying, sometimes you've done jokes for a long time and they lose their potency. I hit this at just the perfect time. I recorded it. I'd been touring. It was like, I felt like I got the set to a place where it was sharp, but I was still excited to do it. So it was really like, I just hit the exact window when I should have recorded it.
Well, congratulations. I can't wait for people to see it. And I want to acknowledge you had a milestone experience recently on Broadway in Oh Mary, a show that I had the chance to see last year. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life. For those who don't know, it's created by Cole Escola, and you played Mary Todd Lincoln's husband, aka Abe Lincoln. And I won't really say much else about the show because it's really hard to explain in this setting. But how did it feel to be on stage? What was that experience like for you?
I'd never done a play before, not even in high school or anything. It was thrilling. It was honestly, when I was doing Welcome to Chippendales, I was working with Annalee Ashford, who's like a Broadway legend.
She's so wonderful.
Incredible. Andrew Reynolds, obviously Broadway legend, Robin DeJesus, and Murray Bartlett, who have all done a lot of theater and a lot of Broadway. And in working with them, I was like, they are so good. These actors are so good. Like, they just felt so present, and it felt like they had access to everything. They had access to themselves. Every take was exciting in a different way. And I'd been asked to do plays before, but doing that show, I was like, oh, they're so good. I need to learn from this. I need to know what this whole thing is. So since then, I was like, if something comes my way, I have to really consider it seriously. And then when Oh Mary happened, it was really, truly out of nowhere. And I hadn't watched the show at that point. My wife had seen the show because I was there shooting Only Murders, and I couldn't make it because I didn't wrap in time. So she saw it. So she'd been talking about it for a year at that point. And usually when I get a job, you know, I tell Emily, and there's always like, all right, so we're going to have to move here. We're going to have to bring all this stuff. This was the first time I told her, and she screamed. And I could swear on this?
You can say whatever you like.
She said, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. She was so excited for me. And then I watched the show, and I got very intimidated because it's such a funny show, and it's so fast, you know. It's like you boom, 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 and you can't mess up. Like, camera acting, you get the fifth take right, and you're a god. Here, you have to get it right night after night after night. You can't mess up once. And so I was very intimidated. And also, you're learning like 90 minutes of lines, you know. Here, you're on a camera, you're learning like 4 pages at a time. Here, you're learning 90 pages.
You can go to your trailer. You can come back. There's all these.
You're going. This is like every night is a sprint, you know, because the show's so fast and high energy too. But I was like, I can't. I'm so scared. But fear is not the reason to not do anything. And so I was like, okay. I said yes, and then I started learning my lines immediately because I was so scared to. And it ended up being such a thrilling experience. I got to do it with amazing actors like Michael Urie and Jinx Monsoon, who's absolutely incredible. Jen Harris, who's done a bunch of plays too. It was her Broadway debut as well. She's great. Tony Mock, who's been with the show forever. So I had an incredible experience. I learned more about I've been doing comedy over 20 years, and I learned stuff in those 2 months that I didn't know before that. And it's just thrilling. Also, baseline, it just feels great to do a really funny show every night and have people give you a standing ovation and have barely anything to do with it. It feels like they're standing up for you, but really they're standing up for the play because the play is so good. But it's great to just really kill every night, and I'm just up there saying the word. So I learned a lot. It was really, really exciting.
Well, unlike stand-up, which is all on you, you have this cushion of people.
But
so-
I think the cushion makes it harder. Like, I'm way more comfortable being on stage on my own, and I know I've had more experience with it, but you're so relying on other people for your comedy timing. So that makes it, I think, way more complicated. And you're learning, like, working with Jinx, who's, like I said, she's amazing, but I have to learn what her comedy rhythm is. She has to learn what my comedy rhythm is. You're doing it night after night after night. It's really exciting. It's much more collaborative, and I think ultimately that is more satisfying. The fact that it's such a collaboration, to me, is exciting. Stand-up is just you, not a collaboration at all, but you could really control that performance top to bottom. Here, you're kind of at the mercy of everybody else too, so it's intimidating.
Very different skill set.
Yeah, I do think, the only advantage for me was I felt comfortable on stage in front of people, so I didn't have that kind of stage fright. That really helped me, like, get over the initial hump, because people are like, oh, it's 1,000 people every night. I'm like, I know, I could do that. That part is easy. It's the acting with other actors on stage. The other thing, like, you're really naked up there. You have to act with your whole body. Like, your toes have to be in character, which was like a really exciting thing. You have to really be completely fluid.
Toes have to be in character. I like that.
Yeah,
this is free acting advice.
Yeah, because if you're like in a movie, the camera's right here. You can the stage is absolutely unforgiving.
That is so true. Well, if anyone can see the show, it is really, truly...
Go see the show. It's incredible.
I've been extolling the virtues of the show for a year.
And Jinx is going back to it in January, for the month of January. So go see her. She's incredible in it.
Excellent. And you have some fun stuff coming up, The Breadwinner, which will be, I think, coming out next year.
It comes out in March.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
that's
cool.
Nate Bargatze, who I did stand up with back in the early Chicago days. Now he's like the biggest stand-up comedian in the country.
He's doing very
well.
well.
He's doing his first movie, yeah.
And what else are you excited about in terms of your professional life, in terms of what we can look forward to? We've all had a tough year. Hollywood's been through it. America, the world. Is there something that's keeping you hopeful and excited amidst these challenging times?
I mean, I find watching great movies very, very inspiring. So, like, obviously everyone loves this movie, but one battle after another, I was like really blown away by it. There's a smaller movie called Twinless that, if you haven't seen it,
it's great. I saw it at Sundance.
Incredible. I moderated a Q&A for it because I love the movie so much. I'm doing a Q&A for a movie called The Life of Chuck tonight because I love that movie as well. So I find that to be inspiring. People making great stuff. And then personally, Emily and I started a production company last year, Wintercoat Films, and we've been developing stuff, and now finally it's getting to the point where some of the stuff that we've developed, we produced one movie that got made. There's some exciting news with it that we can't quite announce yet, but Jay Duplass directed it. It's a really, really great movie. It's called, it's got like Cooper Raiff in it. It's got David Duchovny in it. David Duchovny's in it. Yeah. It's just a really, really incredible movie.
So it sounds like your biggest passions are supporting other artists, making good work yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think supporting other artists, it's truly, my favorite feeling in the world is becoming a fan of someone. Like, if I watch something, like, that was what was great about Twinless. I was like, I did not know James's work, and it's incredible. It's an incredible film. But there's a movie that we've been sort of working on that I think I'm going to get to direct for the first time. So hopefully this coming year
That's
I'll be
exciting.
directing. I'll be making my directorial debut. So I'm very, very excited about that.
That is wonderful news. So my two final questions that I ask of most, or if not all, my guests, if I have time. The first is, what do you hope people take away from having heard your Hollywood story, Kumail?
Listen, if I could do it, anybody could do it. It's really true. I think you just have to work at it, and I think the good news, obviously it's challenging. Industry's in a challenging place, and it has been for years. I think since COVID, 2020, it's 5 years now.
And really starting with the streaming era, I think has sent things in tumult, really.
I feel like when the streaming era first started, we had like a little bit of a boom, where suddenly it became like, oh, there's so many outlets. You can really make stuff that's for small audiences, and that can happen. And IFC was doing that. And with streaming, they were like, oh, we can just go for our little audience. It's really not that anymore. Now they're really looking for stuff that everybody will like.
Now everything's global appeal.
It's everything
and I think
global
shows
appeal.
like Portlandia or these smaller curated shows, you can't argue that they have a global appeal.
And I think it's very hard. I think it's become very hard to make stuff that I don't know how to make something that everybody will like. That feels impossible. And it's really going to dilute the thing you're making too, which is why when something like One Battle After Another happens, which is like a big budget movie, but it's made by, the greatest director in the world, he gets to make it. If somebody else has that movie, they don't get to make it, So I think that it is tricky. And now when we go out and pitch, it really becomes about like, well, this is what it's not about like, this is great, we want to make it. It's like, what is the audience for it? Can we survive? And I think that's it's really challenging.
It is very challenging. And part 2 is, what have you learned about yourself today and sharing your story with us?
That I did Life as We Know It in 2010. That seems so long ago. That was my first movie that I did.
That's your only takeaway, Kumail, from this conversation?
I mean, I don't know. What's the takeaway? I feel like I've been very, very lucky. I've been in like right place, right time so often because, like I said, I got so much stuff from Portlandia, and I just happened to be in the same subway station as her, and really, if she hadn't run into me then, I would not have done Portlandia, and my life would have genuinely been very, very different. So I think, I got lucky. I was ready for it when it happened. I had prepared for it. So, but each thing was intimidating at first. And I think you just sort of realize you are capable of more than you think you're capable of. I think people like limit themselves. I've certainly limited myself. I think that you have the capacity to learn and like get good at something more than you realize. Like people are like, I can't do that. Well, you probably could. If you want to do it, you probably could figure out how to do it. That's what I've learned, like if when I started comedy in Chicago, like over 20 years ago, if something like Welcome to Chippendales, there's no way I would have thought I'd be able to do something like that. Or being in something like Eternals, there's no way I would have thought I'd been able to do that. But you, over time, learn things and you realize you can like do things you didn't think you could do. That's exciting.
I love that. And just a quick closing note and a fun fact about my podcast. Pakistan is second only to the US as the country with the most audio downloads of my show.
What is that about?
And this is even before yours is on the platform.
Am I the first Pakistani you've talked to?
Yes. So what my challenge is to you, what can you say in this episode, Kumail, to make Pakistan the country with the most audio downloads of my show today? What can you do to put me over the edge?
Above America?
Above America, yeah.
Well, I think it's a pretty steep drop off, right? Between first and second,
I can't
numbers-wise.
I can't recall the exact metrics, but it was pretty close. It's strikingly, weirdly close.
Pakistan and America, strikingly close? Oh my God. Wow. Have you wondered?
I've wondered immensely about this phenomenon. So maybe we'll see after this episode drops. We'll see if that shifts. I'll report back.
That would be great. Yeah, let's get to number 1. I mean, I don't know what to say. Our food is incredible. You should go eat Pakistani food. It's going to blow your mind.
All the restaurateurs in Pakistan are very grateful for that message.
Yeah. Emily keeps being like, we should open a Pakistani restaurant in LA. I'm like, that's a good way to lose a lot of money.
Well, on that note, Kumail, I want to say thank you so much for being here. We're so proud of you and honored that you joined us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you so much. My Hollywood Story is a production of Hippolyta Films and Entertainment. The series is written, produced, and hosted by me, Stacey Wilson Hunt. Executive producers for Hippolyta are Sonia Slutsky and Wendy Green. Series producers also include Daryl Young and Janet Grayson. Our camera operator, sound mixer, and editor is Ramiro Cantu. Original music for My Hollywood Story is by Madi Gavriel and Jenny Carr of Moon and Star. Our logo design was created by Brad Mitchell. And I would like to give a very special thanks to Soho House West Hollywood for being the official new home of our show. We couldn't do it without you. This episode of My Hollywood Story was recorded live at Soho House West Hollywood. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you think.